TPUSA Chief of Staff Mikey McCoy stands near Charlie. A shot rings out. Mikey lifts a phone to his ear, turns, and walks away before Kirk falls.
And I want to thank the Turning Point USA board and my husband's Chief of Staff, the amazing Mikey McCoy.
Amazing? Mikey McCoy? Why would this amazing friend of Charlie Kirk walk away calm and collected with his phone up against his ear seconds after Charlie was shot? There's shocking new footage showing Mikey leaving the scene before Charlie even fell on the ground, almost as if he was well aware and knew the script. And that's the man Erika Kirk called amazing in her first speech after Charlie's death. Candace Owens just exposed that Mikey McCoy refused to admit who he was on the phone with when Charlie was shot.
Mikey was behind the tent when Charlie got shot, and Mikey, in less than a second, does something that I find to be quite strange. He puts his phone to his ear, and he begins a conversation.
We need to talk about something that really doesn't make sense here. Charlie Kirk, the face of one of America's loudest conservative movements, gunned down on a Utah campus. The official story? A lone shooter. A random act of hate. A tragedy that should have ended right there. But something feels off. What if the story we're being told is missing pieces? What if the people closest to him, the organization he built, his widow Erika Kirk, his own chief of staff, had deeper roles than anyone wants to admit? Within days of Charlie's death, Erika steps to the podium as the new leader of TPUSA, smiling through tears, promising to carry on the mission. The board signs off almost overnight, and right beside her, Mikey McCoy, the chief of staff, the man who was at that event when the shots rang out, caught in clips acting strangely calm. I'm not here to accuse without evidence, but I'm seeing red flags, and you should too. Tonight we're going to break it all down. The official narrative, the alleged money transfers, the bizarre behavior on camera, and the theories that mainstream outlets won't touch. By the end, you'll see why this case may be far from closed. Because sometimes, the most dangerous secrets hide in plain sight. We know you have your thoughts and opinions, and we would really like to hear you speak your mind in the comment. Here's my take, folks, and I'll be honest, this part unsettles me the most. What feels off isn't just the tragedy itself, it's the pace of what followed. The precision, the timing, the way power shifted like it had been waiting in the wings. Yes, grief can coexist with leadership. People cope by stepping up. But when a grieving widow becomes the CEO of a multi-million-dollar political brand in barely a week, we have to ask, to whose benefit? Erika Kirk appears both broken and newly empowered, two roles that can absolutely coexist, but rarely this smoothly. It's almost as if the entire structure of Turning Point USA was ready to absorb the shock before it even happened. A seamless transition in the middle of chaos. That alone is a red flag. And then there's the Chief of Staff, Mikey McCoy. His behavior, as described in footage and eyewitness chatter, still doesn't sit right with me. If your boss, your friend, the man you've built a movement beside, collapses in front of you, your instincts kick in. You rush forward. You shout for help. You react. The idea of someone just standing by or walking away is, at the very least, suspicious. Maybe it's shock, maybe it's trauma, but maybe it's something more deliberate. True crime history is full of stories like this. A business partner, a spouse, a trusted insider who inherits both grief and power. Think of the high-profile family empires where tragedy and succession seem to arrive hand in hand. Every time people say it's coincidence, and every time, years later, investigators discover that coincidence was just another name for motive. Then there's the money. The donation surge that flooded TPUSA in the days after Charlie's death. Millions pouring in. Publicly, it's tribute, support, solidarity, sympathy. But viewed another way, it's the rapid mobilization of a political and financial machine. The Guardian even noted the organization's fundraising skyrocketed in the wake of the tragedy. That kind of acceleration doesn't happen by accident. I want to be clear. I believe Erika did lose her husband. I believe the emotional trauma is real, and no one should ever minimize that kind of pain. But empathy doesn't cancel scrutiny. You can mourn and still question. You can feel for a person and still demand transparency. And that's where the public comes in. We deserve the truth. Full investigations, clear disclosure of funds, open access to the video footage, independent oversight, no spin, no internal press releases, just facts. Because right now, I see too many mismatches, too many unanswered questions, too many convenient alignments of grief and gain for me to quietly accept the surface story. And neither should you. When you look beyond the headlines and focus on how people behaved, the story takes on a very different texture. Because behavior, especially in moments of trauma, rarely lies. Let's start with Erika Kirk. At Charlie's memorial, barely a week after his death, she publicly forgave the accused shooter. She stood before the cameras, tears balanced with composure, and said she held no anger toward the man who took her husband's life. Now, according to News Talk 105.9 WMAL-FM, that moment drew praise from some and confusion from others. Forgiveness is powerful, yes, but it's also rare, especially that soon after such a loss. Then, just days later, she wrote online that grieving is nonlinear, and that the greater the suffering, the purer the love, as quoted in the Times of India. It's poetic, deeply emotional, but again, controlled, almost curated. A normal reaction for most spouses would be shock, anger, disbelief. To publicly forgive the accused killer within days is unusual. Noble maybe. But in this context, it invites reflection. Was this genuine faith and grace, or a pre-planned image of strength meant to stabilize an organization on the edge of collapse? Now, Mikey McCoy, the chief of staff. By every account, he was with Charlie that day, helping manage logistics, filming, coordinating the event. But according to anecdotal posts, when the gunfire started, Mikey didn't rush forward. He didn't drop to the ground or shout for help. He appeared to walk away, calm, detached, expressionless. Maybe that was shock. Maybe that was self-preservation. But in true crime investigation, behavior in those first seconds often tells the story no one else will. When you see someone close to the victim act composed in the face of chaos, you have to ask, why? Then there's the larger pattern. Erika's immediate elevation into leadership, the seamless transition of power, staff quietly reporting, odd scheduling, missing gear, confusing instructions in the days before the event. None of this is proven, but it's consistent with what investigators often see when something is being coordinated behind the scenes. Little operational anomalies that only make sense after the fact. I'm not saying anyone is guilty, but I am saying this. Behavior inconsistent with normal grief, combined with logistical red flags, deserves scrutiny. Because in true crime, motive often hides not in what people say, but in how they act when they think no one's watching. Now folks, this is where things get complicated, because depending on who you ask, there are several theories about what really happened to Charlie Kirk, and why. Let's start with Theory A, the official one, a purely external assassination, a random act of violence, a lone shooter, no internal links, no hidden agenda. Tyler Robinson acted alone. That's what law enforcement insists. TPUSA, they say, was a victim of circumstance, not conspiracy. And honestly, there's a certain simplicity to that. It lines up neatly with the facts we're allowed to see. There's a suspect, there's an arrest, there's a charge. But here's the problem. That story doesn't explain the other pieces. It doesn't explain the alleged financial transfers. It doesn't explain how leadership changed hands so fast, or why key staffers behaved so strangely in the days surrounding the event. If this was just an isolated tragedy, why do so many details feel coordinated? Then we come to Theory B, the one that people whisper about online, internal complicity, or, at minimum, negligence. Some believe Erika Kirk and Chief of Staff Mikey McCoy might have had foreknowledge, that they either knew something was coming or allowed the perfect storm to unfold. The motive, according to this theory? Power, control, financial gain. Erika becomes head of TPUSA. Donations skyrocket. The brand turns into a movement built on martyrdom. In that light, the speed of the transition makes sense. The fundraising surge makes sense. But here's the catch. It's all alleged. There's no confirmed evidence tying Erika or Mikey to the act itself. And until investigators release something solid, this remains a theory, not a verdict. Still, the coincidences pile up, don't they? And then there's Theory C, the big one. The idea that this wasn't just about individuals, but about institutions. That maybe, just maybe, Charlie's death was leveraged, or even facilitated, by larger political forces. that his organization's sudden rise after his assassination wasn't a tragedy turned triumph, but a planned pivot. In this version, Erika and Mikey aren't masterminds, they're players. Useful faces in a story crafted by those who saw opportunity in chaos. It sounds wild, I know, but history shows us again and again that when power and money are on the line, morality tends to vanish. Still, we have to admit, this theory demands enormous coordination, secrecy, and motive. It's possible, but unproven. And that's the truth at this point. We don't know which of these theories, if any, holds the answer. It could be one of them. It could be a mix. It could even be something we haven't considered yet. I'm not declaring guilt. I'm not pretending certainty. We're exploring possibilities, because when the official story leaves gaping holes, the public has every right and every reason to ask the questions nobody else will. Because in true crime, silence is never the same as truth. According to reports, Charlie Kirk was shot and killed on September 10, 2025, while speaking at an event hosted by Turning Point USA at Utah Valley University. It was supposed to be another campus stop. Speeches, students, cameras, energy? Instead, chaos. Gunfire, the crowd scattering, the founder of TPUSA, gone in an instant. Police quickly named a suspect, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, arrested and charged with aggravated murder. A lone shooter, they said. No known accomplices, no political motive confirmed. The case, at least on paper, seemed straightforward. But then came the part that caught everyone off guard. Just 8 days later, TPUSA announced that Charlie's widow, Erika Kirk, would assume leadership. On September 18th, the board officially voted her in as CEO and chair. Overnight, the face of the organization changed. The public explanation? It was Charlie's wish, and Erika stepped forward, poised, composed, telling cameras she forgave her husband's alleged killer. She promised to carry on Charlie's mission to expand TPUSA tenfold. The organization's fundraising exploded. Donations surged. Headlines called her the new face of conservative youth. That is the official story. A tragic assassination, a grieving widow, a seamless transition, and a legacy continuing in his name. But when you look closer, the timeline, the roles, the actions around them, they start to open up more questions than answers. Because somehow, in less than 2 weeks, an organization built around one man didn't just survive his death, it seemed to thrive. And that's where things begin to get strange. At this point, there are more questions than answers, and some of them cut right to the core of this case. Why hasn't the full, unedited video footage from the moment of the shooting ever been released? We know there were multiple cameras on site. TPUSA always films its events from every angle. So where's the footage? And why hasn't an independent team been allowed to verify it? For an organization that thrives on transparency and exposure, the silence here is deafening. What about that $350,000 transfer reportedly made to Erika Kirk's account just weeks before Charlie's death? The Economic Times claimed the money came from a company that vanished only 4 days after the shooting. Who sent it? What was it for? And why did the sender disappear right when questions began to surface? Then there's Mikey McCoy, the chief of staff who was right there when the shots rang out. What exactly was his role that day? Why does his reaction, or lack of one, look so out of place in the chaos? A man that close to the victim, so integral to the event's logistics, would normally be first to respond. But witnesses describe something else entirely. We also need to look inside TPUSA itself. In the days before the event, were there operational irregularities, staff changes, supply shortages, odd communication breakdowns? Could any of that have weakened security or been intentional? And the succession plan. Why did the board act with such speed to elevate Erika Kirk to CEO and chair? Was it truly spontaneous, or had this been discussed beforehand? Were any other names even on the table? Lastly, follow the money. Are there donor or fundraising patterns, both before and after Charlie's death, that hint at motive? The Guardian reported TPUSA's donations surged dramatically after the assassination. Was that simply public sympathy, or a sign that someone, somewhere, knew how to capitalize on tragedy? Until these questions are answered, in full, in public, and with evidence, the narrative remains incomplete, and the truth may still be hiding in the shadows. All right, let's talk about the evidence, or rather the pieces of evidence that don't quite fit. Not long after the shooting, the internet lit up with what were described as leaks, claims, screenshots, half-deleted posts, all painting a picture that feels impossible to ignore. First, the money. According to online reports, originally circulated by the Economic Times, Erika Kirk allegedly received a $350,000 transfer just weeks before Charlie's death. The payment supposedly came from a shell company that disappeared only days after the shooting. Let that sink in. A six-figure sum from a company that no longer exists, timed right before an assassination. If that transfer was real, what was it for? There's no independent verification yet. No bank records, no official acknowledgement. But even the rumor alone raises an eyebrow, because timing, in cases like this, is everything. Then there's another odd report, one that surfaced barely 48 hours after Charlie's death. Allegedly, a video shows Erika meeting with two unidentified men in what looks like a hotel lobby, her demeanor calm, businesslike. Again, not proven, but the clip was shared, pulled, and re-uploaded across multiple platforms before vanishing entirely. And when evidence disappears that fast, people start to wonder why. Now, the timeline. Erika was officially named CEO and chair of Turning Point USA just 8 days after the assassination. The board's statement said it was Charlie's wish. Maybe it was. But let's be honest, organizational transitions of that magnitude usually take months, not days. Paperwork, approvals, strategy. And yet this one was smooth as silk. Almost prepared. Then we get to the Chief of Staff, Mikey McCoy. This man was there, on site, filming and coordinating at the event. But according to several Reddit threads, when the shots were fired, Mikey doesn't rush to help. He doesn't react with panic. He appears, in the words of one user, to walk away from the scene. Again, it's anecdotal, it's online chatter. But if true, it's chilling. Because when your boss, your friend, the person at the center of your organization collapses, your instincts usually aren't to walk away. They're to run toward the chaos. And these aren't the only oddities being discussed. Some TPUSA staffers have reportedly spoken of strange scheduling changes in the days before the event. People reassigned, new faces appearing temporarily, security posts shuffled. Even reports of equipment, backpacks, gear, switching hands unexpectedly. Nothing confirmed, but the kind of details that, in hindsight, make investigators nervous. So let's ask the obvious questions. Why hasn't the full, unedited video of the incident ever been made public or independently analyzed? If Erika's leadership appointment was already in motion, how long before the shooting did those conversations start? And if that mysterious transfer really happened, why did the company vanish almost immediately after Charlie's death? Here's where things stop adding up. The official narrative presents a clean, tragic story. But behind it are too many shadows, too many rumors that refuse to die. Because when stories line up this neatly on paper and this messily everywhere else, something's not being told. So there you have it. A tragic death, a grieving widow thrust into power, a chief of staff whose actions raise eyebrows, and an organization with massive influence now under entirely new leadership. The official story says it was a senseless act, a lone shooter, an unfortunate moment in history. But the whispers, the leaks, the timelines, the unanswered questions tell a story that feels far from finished. Do you believe the evidence points to something bigger than the surface narrative? Could Erika Kirk and Mikey McCoy simply be victims of circumstance? Two people caught in a storm of tragedy and speculation? Or are they key players in something hidden, something orchestrated, something that the public was never meant to see? I want to know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Which part unsettles you the most? The mysterious money transfer, the missing footage, the lightning-fast rise to power, or maybe the calm behavior of people who should have been anything but calm? And if this breakdown got you thinking, if it made you question the story we've all been handed, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell, and share this video. Because conversations like this only matter if people are willing to keep asking the hard questions. This is how truth surfaces, not through headlines, but through curiosity, persistence, and courage. Because in true crime, the truth never dies.